Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. Thank you very much for staying tuned to your smoothest dial on radio. It's now 6:31 and time for today's edition of Business Express 981. And we have Rotus back. Good morning, Rotus. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. You have Rotus back for this week. That's it.
And then you're off again.
Exactly.
I don't know what to say, but yeah.
No, we have to rest. But the
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, welcome back. Good to have you on the show. Nome represented you well, though, by the way. So just wanted to let you know.
Oh, yeah.
But we missed you. But yeah, welcome everyone. If you're tuning in, this is how you can be a part of the conversation. We're streaming live right now on YouTube. So if you've missed seeing Rotus's face, then go onto YouTube, search for Smooth 981 FM Lagos, and then you can use the chat box to send us a message. Also on our WhatsApp platform, head on there, 0809-444-0981 is the number to send your message to. Right, Rotus, Nigeria dollar reserves rise to $42 billion. We're also going to be looking at, at the fact that Nigeria spent 74% of revenue on debt service in January to August. Also looking at hopefully time for, we'll be able to delve into electricity subsidies in 2022, a whopping 300 billion naira. These are the stories we're looking at this morning.
Indeed. So look, officially, as far as the reserves are concerned, the central bank's website is still reporting about 38 billion or so. But the thing is, you remember that we raised $4 billion from a Euro bond in September last month. And I think it was about $3 billion we're looking for, but it was oversubscribed. There was a lot of demand, so they increased it by 1 billion. So that came out to about 4 billion that was raised. So as if you unofficially, I think This Day newspaper was looking at this. It's in their today's edition of This Day's newspaper on their front page. They were talking to, I believe, central bank officials, and maybe in due time, the website will be updated. But if you take the 4 billion and add that to the 38 reserves, and you get 42. And I think we haven't had that, our reserves haven't been that high since September 26th of 2019. So it's, I think, it's about a 26 month high, and it bodes well. Well, theoretically, it should bode well for the currency as far as defending the currency is concerned. So the Eurobond, the central bank, more firepower to be able to defend the currency. But if you've been looking at where the exchange rate has been officially on the INE window, I think it closed on Friday about 412 or 413 to the dollar. But the parallel markets, I'm still checking with BDCs, and you're still in the 550 to 570 range. So we have to see how much of those Eurobond proceeds that the central bank will channel through to commercial banks, in order for the commercial banks to be able to provide dollars to you and I and our listeners, depending on what your use is, according to the legitimate requirements for, personal travel allowance, business travel allowance, school fees, and medical proceeds. So it's good, but this is still debt, right? This is still debt that Nigeria has raised, and it is still debt that needs to be paid back over time. And with foreign currency debt, you've got exchange rate risk, right? Because you are paying this back in foreign currency. There's not really much of interest rate risk. The rates are decent in single digits, depending on the different tranches that we've issued the bond in. So it's good news overall, but good news that you've got to temper a little bit and say, hey, look, this is still debt, it's still money you're owing, and it's still in a foreign currency. But the good news is it's more firepower for the central bank to be able to defend the currency. Then on the other news on the budget, so Zainab Ahmed, the Minister of Finance for Budget, National Planning, and so on Friday in Abuja, gave a breakdown and a presentation on the 2022 appropriation bill. And of course, when they're doing this, I think we're at expenditures, I think it's a 16.3 trillion naira budget. Get the money for that, I don't know. But as part of her presentation for 2022, there was an update on the budget performance for 2021, at least from January through to August. How has the budget, performed? So we put in, I remember our 2021 budget was 13.5 trillion, if I remember correctly. I believe President Buhari proposal was October 2020. This is again for 2021. The National Assembly passed it in December of 2021, December 21st, and then Buhari signed it into law December 31st. And then there was another supplementary budget of 982 billion that was passed in July of this year. So altogether, you've got 2021 expenditure rising to about 14.5 trillion naira. So anyway, revenues, we brought in 3.9 trillion. And so far, that's underperforming the targets that we have. I think the prorated target was about 5 trillion or so. Expenditure, we spent about, so far, January through August, about 8.1 trillion naira. Now, this is the key now, because I was just talking about Eurobond debt. Debt service so far is 2.8 trillion naira. As a percentage of your revenue of 3.9, that is 74%. So far this year, January through August, Nigeria has spent 74 naira out of 100 naira out of every 100 naira Nigeria made in revenue from January through August of this year, 74 naira of that went to servicing debt, which is paying interest on debts, so it's a debt service to revenue ratio of 74%. And as I've told folks on this show before, talking about debt service, debt to GDP, forget that big metric. The main metric is how much of the money you're bringing in is going towards servicing your debts. And so it's relatively high. I mean, that doesn't leave you much for capital expenditure. Speaking of capital expenditure, it's just 1.7 trillion naira from January through August. When you think of the fact that fuel subsidies this year are almost at 1 trillion naira. In fact, we should cross 1 trillion in October, or by November, we should have crossed 1 trillion. Fuel subsidies alone are almost as much as, well, not almost as much as 700 million, or is it 700 billion difference? But subsidies are almost at capital expenditure. So anyway, capital expenditure, 1.7 trillion, recurrent expenditure, 6 trillion, right? Yeah. And if you include domestic borrowings, including, in fact, very interesting here, domestic borrowing, they included the CBN, which is the Ways and Means, which is the credit line the CBN has extended to the government. They said that's at 4.6 trillion, and then interest on Ways and Means by 807 billion. So by and large, when they take away from the budget presentation that was put together on Friday, is that we're not making enough money, and we're still borrowing a lot. So that is the big takeaway from here, and that's 74% debt service to revenue. And then I think you already mentioned electricity subsidies. Ben Akaboeze, who said that, well, they are looking to slowly eliminate electricity subsidies, but I understand, according to Business Day, that there's about 300 billion naira that's been budgeted for electricity subsidies, which is the difference between the costs of generating that electricity and what the discos are collecting. So subsidy. And the thing is, with elections coming up, by the way, you've seen Tinubu. Tinubu's back in town. You seen him? Huh?
Yes, I have. And there was a huge welcome party for him. Rotus, we have some comments. Yes, so a number of people were excited to see him back. Tai says the reserves reported on CBN website is 30-day moving average, so it takes some time to see the full effect on the reserves. CBN has also been selling more dollars. Ibrahim says the parallel market supplies over 70% of the dollar demand. With BDC licenses revoked, there is almost no way by the CBN to meet that demand. So therefore, I think parallel market rates aren't coming down anytime soon. And then Ayo from Ikoyi says, we've raised 4 billion. What are we investing in to pay back? Oil obviously won't do it. How else will we generate forex? Mining industry hasn't done anything. Refineries aren't supplying neighbors petrol. I don't think that 4 billion can be called good news in any way. Benga Kamu says, Rotus, welcome back. So we did Eurobond and we may use it to defend the Naira. What type of economics is that? Is that money not to improve productive capacity? But officials continue to say we never borrow enough and we have capacity to repay. 74 out of every 100, at least like this Benz is still available. And then Michael says, when you say DTI, DSR, it's about paying your obligation against your income. You said we pay the interest to service our debts. What about the principal? Isn't it supposed to be principal plus interest? And then Daniel, final one, says, is debt servicing different from debt repayment?
Yeah, so debt servicing is debt repayment. So the ability, a country's credibility in the eyes of international markets is predicated on being able to service debt, because you've got the World Bank, the IMF, and all these multinational institutions that are extending credit to you. So your credibility as a sovereign nation is tied to your ability to be able to pay back debt. I mean, just think about it in relation to anybody else as an individual. Yeah, if I can
like a credit rating and your credit history and how well,
Exactly. So if I have no confidence in you being able to pay back your debt, then that there's going to be an issue. And so the prior comment, so there is a portion, of course, when you make your debt payments, a portion of it goes to principal, portion to interest as well. So debt servicing encompasses principal and interest, but there's an interest component to debt, which is why, that's how banks make money. That's how, institutions make money from borrowing and so on and so forth. So the issue, though, is that when you're spending 74% of your revenues on servicing your debt, how much is left for you to be able to, for capital expenditure? And again, January through August, 1.7 trillion on capital expenditure. January through August, 2.9 trillion on debt servicing. So you spent money servicing your debts than you did on the necessary investments, a new bridge, a new road, and so on and so forth. That is still the alarming parts. And so, I mean, we just have to make more money as a country. That's what it comes down to.
All right, then. Ogeno Chuko says, why should government provide 34 billion as MDA in the budget? Some of these government parastatals are irrelevant. And then we also have, I think, for subsidy for MDAs. Jonah from Isolo saying, good to have you back, Rotus. How long do we defend the Naira? What happens when the Eurobond proceeds finish?
Well, the thing is, if the Eurobonds proceeds finish, you've got to pay back your debt. So that one is out there. You have to pay it back. You've got to find more revenue. That is the issue. Now, even Zainab Ahmed was saying that what we saw as far as budget performance was boosted by non-oil revenue. So company income tax, VAT, I think customs revenue, and so on and so forth. Well, oil performed. So we've got to be able to raise our revenues, maybe sell off more assets, liberalize other sectors.
Yeah.
Somebody in the messages mentioned our mining and mineral sector.
Yeah.
Yeah, the numbers are so abysmal when you think of how blessed we are in mineral resources. So that kind of sector, with what Passenger did for telcos, that has to happen for the mining sector to realize more of it. I think only like 3 billion naira came from there in an 8-month period. It's abysmal. So Nigeria has to make more money. That's the gist of it.
All right. Thank you so very much, Rotus. And thanks for joining us this morning. We look forward to more solid conversations all through this week. 6:30 to 6:45 a.m. is Business Express 981 Monday to Friday. So join us same time tomorrow morning. Next up, we have Freshly Pressed 981 at 7:30. Before then, some great music here on Smooth 98.1 as your companion on your way to work, school, or perhaps just lying in bed. I'm Mairo-Ese.
Business Express. Brought to you by
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thanks a lot for having us as part of your company in the morning. We're back again tomorrow at 6:30. But before then, join us for all other programming here on Smooth 98.1.